Well, folks, thank you all for being here for our session of IRB 101. We're really excited to have this session with you all and have a very special guest today from the Office of Human Research, Oversight, and Compliance, Mr. Richard Bartlett, who is an excellent member of our UTEP community, has been working with us for a long time, actually former member of the graduate school and a great friend to us here. So really excited for him to be able to present to you all today on IRB. And so we'll go ahead and kick it over to him and let him take the session. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. As mentioned earlier, my name is Richard Bartlett. I'm the IRB Administrator for UTEP, and I'll be speaking about the Human Subjects Research Program here at UTEP, also known as the IRB. All righty. So, a little information about the IRB and its importance. The Institutional Review Board is a committee representing various research disciplines from the university that oversees all research involving human subjects conducted by faculty, staff, or students who might use any university property or non-public information to contact human research subjects. And federal law requires that IRBs be established to review all studies involving human subjects, both funded and unfunded. So that would be funded by the federal government or not funded by the federal government. So the roles and responsibilities of the IRB in general is to review, approve, in some cases disapprove, suspend, request modifications, or terminate submitted studies. Ultimately, our whole reason for being is to safeguard the safety of human participants participating in human subjects research. And we're, as part of that, we're also ensuring that research is being conducted in an ethical manner. And we process study submissions through expedited, exempt, or full board review. Those are the different types of review levels that we have. There's technically 4, but those are the 3 main ones, and we'll be going over that here in a minute. So, what is research? Well, it's defined here as a systematic investigation, including research development, testing, and evaluation designed to develop or contribute to generalizable knowledge. So systematic investigation, that basically means that you have deliberate steps that you're taking in order to discover, say, your research questions, and there's a definite procedure that you're following in order to generalize or to develop generalized knowledge, which is really knowledge that is useful or could be applied to a wide population. So just going into what a human subject is, there is an actual definition for it. Part of that definition is that they are a living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtains information, biospecimens, and that could be through intervention or interaction, or they use, study, analyze, or generate identifiable private information or biospecimens from those individuals. So that is what a human subject is defined as. And we'll go ahead and speak on the different submission types. So these basic categories of review have one main factor that we look at to determine basically what type of review your submission would go through. And that is the amount of risk on human subjects research, and that would be the probability and magnitude of harm or discomfort anticipated in the research. That's not only physical harm or discomfort, but it could be mental harm or discomfort, could be social harm or discomfort. So there's different ways that we take a look at risk factors for participants. And in general, if your research is less than minimal risk, then they would be either exempt or expedited review level. But before I go further in that, let's talk about what minimal risk is defined as. And that's generally not greater than what would ordinarily be encountered in the participant's daily life or doing routine physical or psychological examinations or tests. If there is an inconvenience, it's a mild inconvenience, and it should be brief in duration. So, just only a mild inconvenience to daily routine. So as long as it's minimal risk or less than minimal risk, we'll go into on the first two levels of review. Exempt review means that the research project or study that you are doing is exempt from IRB authority or purview, or it's research that wouldn't be seen by a convened full board. So there are 8 allotted categories as defined by federal regulation of the different types of things that could be categorized as exempt from IRB review. Expedited review, that is proposals that need a bit more review than what would normally be considered in an exempt project. So expedited is usually assigned to 1 or 2 members of the IRB to take a look at, and so that's a slightly more stringent level of review. And then the last would be full board review, which is where we would have to wait until the next convened IRB meeting. So something that I'll be talking about here in a little bit are protected populations or vulnerable populations. Now, those include, pregnant women, children, and prisoners. Now, prisoners have I guess you could call it a special case to where any protocol that involves prisoner populations immediately go to full board, period. We have a representative that looks through any protocol involving prisoner populations, and they make sure that everyone's being treated fairly. So here is a lovely visual on the general process when you apply or go ahead and submit your IRB project. So you eventually will be the PI of your own research project. So you would submit the completed IRB project, or at least hopefully completed, and then my office would verify that training has been completed and make sure that the package is complete and it follows the guidelines that we have. We would determine if it was human subjects research, and if it is determined that it's not human subjects research, we determine whether or not it's research, and if it involves human subjects, and if it doesn't, then we'll issue a non-human subjects research determination letter to the PI, and that should take care of that. If it is human subjects research, then we start looking at the different levels of review. If it's exempt, expedited, or full board. So if we consider the risk to be very low, the questions that are being asked are benign, there's nothing controversial or anything that could be possibly hurtful to a population, or just in general less than minimal risk, then we'll definitely take a look to see if it's exempt. And that's also where we'll, if any document is missing, say a informed consent form or a test instruments, whether that be a survey, questionnaire, some sort of a schematic of a 3D mapping device, or whatever the test instruments might be. If we need further information, or if documentation is missing, or something needs to be changed, then we'll notify you as the PI and give you about a week to go ahead and address that. And then once you address it, upload what you need to upload, modify what you need to modify, whatever the case is, then you resubmit your project, and we take a look at it again, and if everything's good, then and we've determined it as exempt, then we'll send a determination letter to you. We'll send a notification that a decision has been made, and your determination letter will be available in IRB Net, which is the software that we're using to process different research projects. And similarly, if it's expedited or full board review, it has the same basic cycle as exempt would. The only real difference would be the level of review, who reviews it, and when it gets reviewed. So I'll be going over general timelines for the different types of reviews a little bit later. And of course, some potential barriers or contributors to delays would be incomplete or inadequate applications, delays in responding to requests for information or modifications, the number of request cycles. I'm definitely a type of person that if something has gone back and forth a few times and it doesn't seem like anyone is really either understanding the issue or not quite communication just isn't there, then I'm definitely one for either in-person or Teams meeting to go ahead and discuss whatever the situation is. So hopefully at that point, there won't be any sort of miscommunication. Everybody knows what's expected, and they can go ahead and make those changes. Individuals that haven't completed IRB required training, especially if the student doesn't sign their project, that also goes into your faculty advisor. That would be another person that would need to sign your project when you're ready to go ahead and submit that. And of course, currently I am an army of one. So if there are several submissions in a given day, that will slow things down while I try to process everything. So that would be a delay. And then missing letters of collaboration or approval. Those letters of collaboration or approval are used when you as a researcher wants to go off campus or off site somewhere else. Say you wanted to do some research actually physically at EPCC. Well, you would need to have authorization from EPCC in order for you to conduct that research at EPCC. So that would be where a letter of collaboration or approval would come in. We would see that to make sure that the site, the external site that you want to do research at, they're aware that you want to do research there, and they approve it, and they're willing to give you either space or computers or whatever the case might be. Alrighty, one of the most important aspects
Richard,
of
can I break in for just a second with some questions? Sorry.
okay.
So I got a couple. We have one question that's about vulnerable populations, but I know we're getting to that later, so we'll hold on to that one
Mhm.
for a bit. A question that came in that last section I wanted to pose to you. Raul asks, almost every week, many people, students, researchers send us invitations through UTIP email to participate in research. These are generally involved surveys, various kinds, or participating in more or less in-depth research in return for a certain sum of money. How do we know if these research programs meet IRB requirements?
Well, I would hope that once it's in the actual advertising stage, that it's already gone through IRB review. If we do, when we see an ad that goes out like some that have recently, we definitely make sure that it's been through the review process and that it's approved. And if it isn't, then we start the chain to, you know, um, find whoever the principal investigator is for that project and go ahead and have a conversation with them. But normally, if they're already advertising, then it is approved. And also for expedited and full board reviews, any project that goes through those two, we normally stamp documents, basically stating that, you know, it's been authorized by the IRB. So if that project has gone through those two levels of review, then they should have, you know, most have the picture and then text version. Well, on the picture, at very least, they should have a stamp on it. And the main reason why they wouldn't have a stamp on it is that the research is probably exempt. So we don't stamp exempt research because they're exempt from IRB review. So
Excellent. Thank you, Richard.
no problem. One of the most important things that you'll need to keep track of as part of ethical human subjects research is informed consent. Let's really kind of boil it down. Informed consent is where a participant can consent or not consent to participate in research due to the fact that they have a full picture of what the research is, what the goal of the research is, what's expected of them, what's expected of the researcher, if it's dangerous, if anything good will happen, if anything bad will probably happen. You know, all these different factors go into informed consent. Key information should be placed right up at front. So one way to think about it is almost like practice in your abstract. So you're making almost like a mini abstract paragraph or two summarizing everything that's important about the research, why you're doing it, who your population is, inclusion, exclusion. Let's see here. Really in general, what they'll do, how long it'll take, if you're offering compensation, and then, follow up. And then other key information in that was alternatives to participating in the research. Since we are a institution of higher education, there are a lot of research protocols out there that offer extra credit as compensation. So in that case, if you're offering extra credit or in a position to offer extra credit, then you would have to provide an alternative to participating in that research. Say, for example, your extra credit for participating in research is like 1% of total grade. And your research should take 20 minutes for the participant to complete. So then you would have to provide an alternate that is the same amount of extra credit and the same amount of time commitment. That way they still have an opportunity to get that extra credit for the same amount of work. That way, if anything happens to where they can't participate, or they just decide not to participate, then they still have an opportunity to get a benefit. It should be presented in a concise and focused manner, and it should be very simple for anyone to understand. All righty, the vulnerable populations. So the ones that are protected by federal regulations are pregnant women, human fetuses and neonates, prisoners, and children. So those are special classes of individuals that we have to go into further review, and just to make sure that everything is good for them. Other populations that we do keep an eye on, just to make sure that there isn't any coercion or undue influence or anything of that nature, would be individuals that are cognitively impaired, students, employees, and faculty of UTEP, minorities, economically or educationally disadvantaged individuals, anyone with AIDS or might be HIV positive, or any other terminally ill subject. We keep an eye on those populations just to make sure that there's not a possibility that they might be taken advantage of, or be coerced in some sort of way to participate in research.
So Richard, just following up on that question for the student had related to special populations, they asked, are teenagers from middle and high schools also considered vulnerable and protected populations? So based on that information, they would be, correct?
They are children.
Excellent. Okay, just triple checking for their question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And this slide kind of goes into some of some of the extra steps for children. But before we get there, for informed consent is designed for adults. And an adult is anyone 18 or older. So when writing informed consent form or study information sheet, then the information on there should be at most at an 8th grade reading level, and don't use technical terms. If you have to use technical terms, then you should define what those terms are. So if you make it extremely simple and easy to understand, that's pretty much what we're looking for. Again, you should outline what's involved, emphasize the voluntary nature of the study, and for children, allow the child to ask questions and understand the purpose of the research. When it comes to research with children, that's in general ages 7 to 17. We don't really worry about child assent if they're younger than 7. In those cases, if they're younger than 7, then we're concerned with getting a parental permission. But from ages 7 to 17, we'll need parental permission and child assent. Now, parental permission, that should be self-explanatory, and most of those are written similarly to an informed consent form, except it's really being addressed to the parent about what their child will be doing. And then the child assent is directly to the child, saying basically all the same information that would be in a normal informed consent, but always keep in mind your audience. So if you're recruiting 7-year-old kids, then you wouldn't write it like your thesis or dissertation, unless you want to answer several questions on several occasions while you're doing consent. So the consent and assent process must be fully described and justified in the protocol research plan. So while you're writing out your submission, you'll need to fully describe how you're going to get parental permission and how you're going to get child assent, and how you're going to get, if those two populations don't apply, how you're going to get informed consent, period. So just to recap, adults 18 plus, we need informed consent. For anyone in between ages 7 and 17, we need parental permission and child assent. For anyone under the age of 7, we need parental permission. And so things to keep in mind when it comes to confidentiality and data protection. There is some research where HIPAA and FERPA do protect the disclosure of individually identifiable health, educational, and economic information. And if those two laws don't really apply, which honestly, in one way or another, one of those laws will apply, but another way to protect confidentiality and your data is to kind of keep in mind or restrict what you're actually collecting. Protection should also be developed consistent with the study design and the potential risk of harm from breaches of confidentiality. Here's one example that you may not even really consider, but we suggest that instead of asking for an individual's date of birth, you ask what their age is. Or if you need month and year, that's all right. It's definitely not as specific as month, day, year. But if you can still get the information that you need in a more general way of getting it, we prefer that. So asking for age instead of date of birth, asking more general things. Here are some things not to do, some investigator pitfalls. And if you're not aware, that meme is from Escape from Witch Mountain. So some things not to do. If you're doing research, it's a good idea to submit it for IRB review, especially if you're not sure. Ultimately, it's not your responsibility to determine whether or not your research is human subjects research. It's the IRB's responsibility. So if you're not sure, or you think it might, or you just want to be safe, go ahead and submit it. Not obtaining or documenting informed consent, that is definitely something you should never do. You should always ensure that you're getting informed consent. And it's a continual process. It's not just, okay, you signed the paper, you're done. Because your participants can always decide to change their mind. And that is still part of the informed consent process, because they have their right to change their mind, decide not to participate at any time. And also, as a researcher, you have a right to stop their participation, especially if you feel like it might be a danger to them or something like that. You can also stop their participation at any time. And normally that's done with some conversation. It's not or one or the other party would go ahead and give them give a reason or a rationale. It's not required, but it's usually done that way. Again, don't assume that your research is not human subjects research, because that is not your responsibility to make that decision. And something that we'll talk about a little bit later, and that I mentioned previously, allowing adequate time for IRB review. We'll go over the review times in a bit. And also try to make sure that um, even the appearance of coercion or undue influence on participants is minimized to the very, the minutest possibility that you can. We do have this issue usually with instructors that want to do research and use their classes. One way to reduce the possibility of coercion or undue influence is for um, them to give extra credit, allow them to do this during their off hours, or to have someone totally not connected to anything actually actually go in and do perform the study or perform the survey if it's that type, or if it's a focus group, that way there's less of a chance of coercion or undue influence. Some of the roles and responsibilities of the primary investigator in research. Assure that you're doing a safe and ethical study. And one way to do that is to, supervise your study team. Make sure that if you do have a study team, they're also being ethical along as yourself. Compliance for human subjects and research training for self and study team members. So that training is very important. Follow through on IRB submissions. As I mentioned earlier, you'll have a week to provide any clarifications or revisions, or supply any missing documentation. If you need more than a week, that's fine. We understand. We just ask that you notify us. That way, we won't keep harassing you with emails about you needing to submit things. If we know you need, say, an extra week, then we can accommodate for that. Acquisition of proper letters of collaboration to include other IRB approvals, site affiliates, and letters of cooperation, and proper use of IRB approved and stamped documents. One of the things that I do want to go through before we're done is our website. It's got pages for training and submission. So the IRB required training is on City, which is it's basically a platform that we use for many types of training. But you would be doing social and behavioral research modules on City. We suggest that you do it before you even submit for IRB review. IRB review can take longer than anticipated, so try to allow for adequate time for for preparation and review. One of the things that definitely extend time periods is doing research with outside institutions. There are several cases where we have to do something known as a single IRB, or we would rely on that institution's IRB, or that institution would rely on our IRB for a determination of the research. And in order to do that, there has to be an IRB agreement between the institutions, and that can take a little bit of time to for the institutional officers to actually get those signed. So that's one thing that might take a little more time. Also, here is my phone number, extension 6590, and we prefer that you use irb.orsp@utep.edu, because there are several eyes that look into that email folder. So if I'm out or sick, there is a good chance that someone will still see your email. So some frequently asked questions real quick. Here's the most frequently asked question. What's your contact information? Here it is. And my boss is Miss Athena Fester. She is the director of research, regulatory assurances, and oversight and compliance. And here are the general IRB timelines. Exempt, since it's usually the lowest level of review, it shouldn't take more than 14 business days. But to be honest, we're pretty much on the quicker side of things, so we're trying to get them done within 5 business days. But these are the timelines that we advertise, just so if it's necessary, there's a cushion. That way, you know, if we get a huge amount of submissions in 1 week, naturally it will take longer for us to process. Expedited should be no more than 6 weeks, but we're definitely shooting for the 2 week window for expedited. Full board, well, that will take more than likely an entire month, because that gets reviewed by the full board during the IRB meetings, and those only happen once a month. And that is for new submissions, any changes or amendments, or projects that are about to expire that need to continue. So any of those type of submissions will go through a review. Just about the only one that doesn't, in a way, is personnel. That's usually acknowledged and administratively processed. So if you change team members or add or move, we usually just acknowledge that. And then whatever changes need to be put into your next submission. Research in K through 12 settings. We have a web page with all the districts' contact information. So similarly to you doing research off campus, well, you will definitely need the district's approval, the campus's approval, and UTEP's approval. So we have all that information there because district requirements differ. So you can contact them before you start your research to get that ball rolling. International research, that includes research that goes on in Juarez. I know it's sometimes we don't think of it as another country, but it is. Any research happening internationally is subject to normal guidelines for any research conducted within the United States. And if the country that you're doing the research in has international ethics or local ethics approvals that you need to get, you'll also have to get that. In most cases, it's only in most cases it's more a privacy issue. So they might have some sort of privacy statement for your participants to sign or keep. But that would really be up to the country. All righty. And I guess we can get to questions while I shift over to the website.
Yeah, and we actually have a question that is germane to the slides you just had, Richard, about international research. And you covered this a bit, but I think it'd be helpful to clarify. They asked if they intend to do transnational research, should they also submit the project to IRB, even if part of the research is potentially done in another country like Mexico? So understanding would be yes, because they're doing research under the auspice of UTEP. But then they would also need to reach out to that country. Do you have any recommendations on who they would reach out to in the other country?
That would primarily there's usually an institution involved. So if that's the case, then you know, a conversation with that institution should be had. And in most cases, the institution itself will take a look at it and state, okay, this doesn't violate civil rights or privacy or anything like that. But there are some countries that require almost the same level of review that we have. And if you're doing research in that country, then you would have to honor their regulations as well as the ones here in the States.
Great, thank you, Richard. We also have a request, and we can maybe do this towards the end of the session, to put the slide back up on the timelines. And so as we close out, if we can re-reference that after we go through the website, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So in the website, the easiest way to get there, if you don't already have it bookmarked, is go to my UTEP or utep.edu and search for 3 easy letters, IRB. And we are the first hit, Human Subjects Research, IRB. And so here is the IRB webpage, the homepage. And here we have links to IRBnet, city frequently asked questions, our regulations, and then other departments in our division. So if for general information about the IRB, you can go here. But what people really want to know is, the training. So if you go to our training page, here it lists the different types of training that is valid for IRB. And here's a link to the city program, a registration guide, so you can go ahead and sign up. Step-by-step instructions to register in city to do your training. And if you've completed training already, and it's still valid, the training lasts for 3 years, then here's a guide to go ahead and put that in IRBnet. It's not required for you to put it in IRBnet, but you're definitely able to. And for National Institute of Health funded investigations, you're also required to have good clinical practice training. So we have a link here for that. This is not good for IRB purposes. This is specifically for NIH funded investigations. And you'll know if who it's funded by the time you get there. In most cases, as a student, it'll be funded by your faculty advisor or maybe your department. So maybe you have a couple of dollars to do refreshments or something like that. But in general, there might not even be any funding. So regulations, if you really want to know all the ins and outs of the regulations, they're right here. And then submitting projects. So this page handles first-time submissions. So here's a link to IRBnet, which is the platform that we use. And similarly to the city, we have a step-by-step guide to register an IRBnet. Also, we go through the different types of submissions that we normally see and the documents that are required for each submission. And you also have a step-by-step guide in submitting your first IRBnet submission. And some special notes here for students in particular. Noticed how I mentioned earlier about signing your project. Well, since it's mandatory for students, we have extra steps here for you to go ahead and be able to sign and share your project with your faculty advisor because they need to have access to it. Additional guidance for audio video recording, deception, ads, Title IX, Texas Family Code, monetary compensation, and clinical trials. And here are the review types and in general how long it'll take. So 10 to 14 days for exempt, For expedited, 2 to 8 weeks. And full board, of course, it'll be bare minimum 4 weeks. Could take up to 12 weeks, depending on the complexity of the project, how many modifications need to be made, things of that nature. So this is on the submission page, and it's also in the IRB information page. Here's some the IRB meeting schedule. This is in general when the meeting should be. Might be before or after that, but or it might not even happen in a given month, depending on the volume of projects we had to review. And here's the time frames again, and the basic process and contact information. And just like with initial submissions, we also have a guide for other types of submissions. How long IRBs are normally valid for, and another step-by-step guide to submit packages for your project, which would be amendments or continuations, or if something happens and you need to report it, that would be an unanticipated problem or an adverse event. Other reasons to submit. And last but not least, we'll go into, well, actually not last, but go into forms real quick. Here are all the forms that you'll need to submit your project in IRB net. One catch, it's already up in here, but if you click on the links and you're not signed into IRB net, it will take you to IRB net so you can sign in. Once you're signed in, then it will download the document. These documents are hosted on IRB net, so you'll need to be signed in order to access them or download them, so you can go ahead and fill them out. If you're already signed into IRB net, then it should download automatically. And then real quick, external and collaborative research, affiliated research, that would be you. You're affiliated to UTEP, and if anybody not affiliated to UTEP wants to do research here at UTEP, then that guidance for unaffiliated researchers is for them. And K through 12 research information. This has all the district information and contact information for them, links to their websites, and if they have individual research requests or ways to request that, then that's posted here as well. I guess we can go ahead and just make sure that we've caught questions.
Yes, we had another question that's related to international research, and again, it's really asking about when they're applying to both our IRB and an international IRB. So, is it required to have the host country's IRB approval as a requirement to get UTEP's IRB. So what's the order of operations there, Richard?
That is normally UTEP IRB first. So what we will require is at least a letter of collaboration or some other proof that wherever you're doing that research, they're aware that you're doing the research. They're welcoming the research being done. They'll do recruiting or provide a population or whatever the case is, and a note about their country's ethic requirements. So if it's just going to be reviewed by the institution or the organization, then that's fine. If the country has their own IRB or ethic reviews, then normally it would be done very similarly to the way the US does it. It's not like a regional thing or anything like that. That would be done by normally the institution that you're doing the research at. There are some cases where private or for-profit organizations have an IRB. That's normally for biomedical research or something like that. It's normally not the case with social behavioral research. That's usually within either some sort of social science group or within an institution.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard.
No problem. There any other questions?
Checking the chat right now. I think we've caught up on all the questions in the chat, unless folks want to post some other ones. Or if they'd like to come off mute and ask Richard a question, I think you're open to that, right?
Absolutely.
There you go.
I will take it. There are no questions at this time.
You've done an excellent job, Richard. We got some thanks in the chat there. You've done such a good, thorough, exhaustive job. Well, thank you again for coming in and hosting this session for us. We really appreciate you coming in to do this and chatting with our students about IRB. We will record this and post this session in about a week with the Richard's approval, which we really appreciate. So if folks need to review this, they can on our website. But if you do have further questions, please make sure you reach out to Richard out in his office. And what was that email again that you prefer? I'll go ahead and post it in the chat.
It's irb.orsp@utep.edu.
And there's a question about the recording posting. We're going to post that on our workshops and events page, where we post all of our recorded workshops. And if you are wanting to know where that's at, just email gradpd or gradsupport@utep.edu, and I can get you that information. All righty. Well, if there's no other questions, that I think brings us to the close of our session today. But thank you again to Richard and to our staff helping support us and the students who attended today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, and hope everyone has a good rest of the day.